Hey everybody, it's Greg Raven, and today we are making ribs. Personally, when I do charcoal, when I'm smoking, I prefer to use one of these, which basically it just connects right here, just like so, and it gets ridiculously hot very fast. So I just let that do its thing for a little while, and trust me, when it starts to smoke, you know it's ready. So. But that's all as far as that goes. As far as the wood goes, when you're smoking, you should be using hickory whenever possible. If you use mesquite, it will turn a lot of your ribs bitter. So don't use those. Apple wood is great. Cherry wood is great. I don't suggest alder, but I definitely use hickory. That's one of the best. Oak is fine as well. So, but yeah, what I do is I basically have a nice little bucket here, and I fill it up with water, and then I put hickory in there, and I also have. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, apple wood is also good. So yes, and that's pretty much it for that. So we'll get those going here in just a second. No real exact amount, I'm just going to sprinkle it in there. And then, because this is going to have to smoke for a good 8 hours, give or take, I'm going to use probably a good portion of this. So, I'm going to fill up most of the bucket. Or pail, depending on how you want to say it. Yep, that's about right. And that should pretty much do it. And then I just let that do its thing, and as we go on through the day, you'll see as basically I'm just going to keep that soaked. I'm going to put a little bit on once we get started, once the fire is ready, and I'm going to start that up and let it do its thing. And every time the wood disappears, I'm just going to put a little bit more on, just throughout the day, sporadically. So, just to keep it going. And every so often I'll have to add a little more charcoal, but that's about it. So, and now on to the most important step, the ribs. Okay, so now a lot of people ask me, should you remove the membrane? Answer is yes, always, for a variety of reasons. Number one, the rub will not permeate the ribs themselves, and it makes it incredibly chewy, like chewier than a Wookiee steak. So that being said, how do you remove it? So I always use a knife just like this, nothing overly sharp, and I just tap. I mean, you can see the bones pretty easily, but I just tap the bone just a little bit to see, and I just get under that skin just a little bit. There we go. Of course, it's going to be a little obnoxious today because I'm on film. And you just want to pry just a little bit up, not a whole lot, just enough to where you can get your fingers under there. That's the big thing. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. And I go both ways. I pry it up from that end, just to make sure I'm in there, and then pry it up from the other end, just a little bit. And that should be enough for me to actually work with now. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to get my fingers underneath here. I'm going to let my fingers do the walking, as it were. And I'm just going to get to the other end of that. And there we go. Now we're all the way through. And now everything should come off, for the most part, in one fell swoop. There we go. And then the last part. There we go. And obviously this gets discarded. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, I will point out that before I did this, after I took it out of the packaging and everything like that, I rinsed these off really, really well. And that way they are mostly clean. And that way I don't have to do too much with these porky fingers. So now the only thing I have really left is to do the other one, and I'll do that here in a moment, and then we'll get to seasoning. Okay, so now we're on to this, my favorite part. Well, aside from eating, but basically we're gonna season them. Now, I'm not gonna teach you how to make your own rub because honestly, most of you aren't going to do that. We'll do that for another episode. But for today, I'm going to use just Stone Mill Classic Barbecue Taste Generic Rub. I'm sure they probably won't like me saying that it's generic, but to me, it's generic rub because it's not homemade. Now, sometimes this tends to clump, so make sure you shake it up really well. And you're going to be liberal with this. Don't be afraid to scatter. So now it's going to be a little obnoxious. Now I'm going to have to do this. Yeah. There we go. And like I said, you're going to get a little clumpage. It's going to happen. That's because most rub uses brown sugar. And that tends to clump very easily. Now there are a couple different schools of thought when it comes to rub. Myself, I like to use it, I don't use it sparingly. I really don't, as I make a mess. But I will rub it in, I'll massage it in. And it's crucial to have a good amount of rub on here. Like I can feel this right here doesn't have enough for my taste. There we go. So I always add a little bit, and I pound it in, and I kind of massage it in just a little bit. And then I simply turn it over and do the same thing with the other one. Now a lot of people will not do this. I will tell you right now, I always do. Because you're still going to be eating it. So why not use the most flavor that you can? Now this is only round one of the rub. I will be doing 2 rounds of rub on this. And you'll see why here in a moment. Now this one, like I said, I'm going to be a little generous, although not as much on the back side. Just to give it a little color. There we go. And now I'm going to use my other rub, which I always use a second rub, which is specially flavored. In this case, it's applewood. So, and this one I'm not going to use as much. I'm going to use just a little bit, just to accent. Because I'm going to be using applewood as well. Now I will tell you there is one other step should you have it available. And that is I shouldn't say always, but if it's available, I like to use fresh apple cider. So obviously in the fall, this is more prevalent. And obviously I'm gonna do the same side. But what I do is I soak it almost like a brine for about an hour in apple cider. And what that does is it gives it just a little bite. It's like a sweet, tart little note, and wow, what a difference that makes, I'll tell you. And if you use more apple wood, that's going to just make it taste that much better, honestly. There are different styles of ribs that you can make. I used to make a tropical island Hawaiian version years ago and things of that nature. So there we go. So that's the seasoning. Now go wash those porky hands. Oh yeah, that's ready, definitely. And once you're done with this, you obviously want to put this somewhere safe. Believe me, that is really hot right now. You don't want to get anywhere near that. So I'm going to just kind of blow on this just to stoke it a little bit. That's perfect. And then I'm just going to let that do its thing for a few minutes while we get the ribs ready. All right, so now we got to put these bad boys on. Wrong side. I almost put it on the gas side. That's very smart of me. Now you're not going to see a whole lot of smoke at first. I will tell you, this is how I always do it. Now these will rotate throughout the day. You'll notice that I have one smaller one, one larger one. So I will just close this up, and you're saying to yourself, but Greg, there's no smoke yet. It's because I haven't put any wood on it yet. All we have right now is just charcoal. So now I'm going to throw a little bit of wood, not much, just a little bit, just a little handful. I'm just going to throw that on there, and it will start hissing immediately. And in a moment or two, it's going to start. I'm going to close that. By the way, if you're curious how to use the dampers, if you have this open wide, it's going to create more wind flow, which means it's going to get hotter. If you close it up a little bit, you're going to get more smoke. And it's not going to get as hot. Since we are barbecuing, we are, and same thing with this one, we are looking for low and slow. So that's the important thing with this. So in a moment or two, that's going to start smoking. And my next step isn't going to be for another hour, maybe hour and a half, with the occasional just adding more wood to the charcoal for that matter, to the fire. That's pretty much it right now. And then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so we are back, and this has been sitting for a few hours now. And let's see how it looks. Oh yeah, that's looking very nicely. Now, this is the thing that everybody tends to forget. I always put it on the foil first. Tin foil, aluminum foil, aluminium, depending on what country you're from. And I simply just wrap it up thusly and put it back. That's it. I'm going to do both of them. There we go. I should point out something, that it's already got a little bend to it, which is good. Is it tender? Probably not. It's probably going to be very tough yet, which is why this next step is so very important. Because what this is going to do is, as the heat builds inside this, it's going to create moisture. But basically, we're going to be steaming this. So that's a really important step. Does the smoke really matter at this point? Not so much, to be honest. I'm still going to add wood every so often on there. But the reason I have it like this is that way it steams it more or less, and that's going to make it super tender. This is going to stay on here for a couple of hours now. The only thing I'm going to be doing is occasionally adding a little more charcoal and a little more wood. That's about it. So that's the important stuff for right now, and we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, it's been several hours, and now we are ready to unwrap. So there we go. Oh yeah, that is super tender and super hot. So now we carefully, because as you can see, these are already starting to fall apart. Oh my. And they have shrunk up considerably, which is going to happen. While inevitable, it is still shameful. So if it happens to you, it's because God hates you. Well, maybe not God, but you know, some sort of deity of some sort. I almost got myself on that one. Alright, so now comes almost the final step. Hold that to the side. Come back to that here in a few. And that is sauce. Now, I'm not going to teach, again, I'm not going to teach you how to make your own sauce. It's pretty easy to do, actually. There are tons of good recipes out there for that. But what I usually do is just a little coating. And then we brush it on thusly. And then once we're done with the brushing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank up the heat a little bit. So I literally just added more charcoal. So I shouldn't have to do a whole lot more. And then what that's going to do is that's going to caramelize this. Shoo fly. There we go. And so I will crank up the heat. And in 30 minutes, we're going to do the exact same thing with honey. So we'll see you in 30 minutes. Okay, so it's been going for about 30 minutes now. So now we're going to add, it's looking pretty good. We're going to add some honey to this. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. Come on, there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to brush this on. Just a light coating. What this is going to do is, because I have cranked up the heat, this is going to caramelize this and give us a nice little bark. Oh yeah, that's going to be really, really nice. That is super tender. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing with the sauce and the honey 2 more times. So we have 1 more hour to go on this, and then we'll be at the final stages. And then we're almost ready to eat. Okay, so our ribs are done. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to just take them off. Always have a clean platter to put them on, if at all possible. These are actually so tender, they're falling apart. Which, believe me, is not a bad thing. Look at that. That is beautiful. Absolutely perfect. And only in 72 steps. So anybody can do this. It's nothing really. So now you know how to make them. And maybe in the next video, maybe I'll teach you how to make rub and or sauce. Be sure to leave a comment in the comments, and we'll figure out if you want to do it or not. make sure you click that icon, that thumbs up, and be sure to click that subscribe button to be notified of all of our new and upcoming videos. Have a great day. My name is Greg Raven. Hey, if you liked that video and you want to see more, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.